Owen and I had a secret crush on each other for 10 years. After one drunken night, we finally crossed that line. I thought it was the start of a beautiful romance. Instead, it was the beginning of the end for him. His grandma, the only family he had left, couldn't accept him being with a man and took her own life. Devastated, he got into a car accident and could never hold a paintbrush again. Now, I'm back before any of that happened. This time, when he confessed his feelings, I ran. I stood at the foot of the bed watching Owen sleep. He looked so peaceful, completely relaxed. His skin was smooth in the moonlight, still free of the 11 jagged scars that would later snake up his arm. I instinctively reached for a cigarette, then remembered I hadn't started smoking yet. 5 minutes ago, I realized I'd been reborn, sent back a year before my death. This is a bad time to come back. Owen and I just spent a wild night together. The air was still thick with intimacy, and our clothes were scattered all over the floor. My back ached as I started to clean up. I gathered the evidence of our night in my torn shirt, picked up his clothes one by one, smoothed them out, and then grabbed the bottle of wine. I sprinkled a little around the room to cover up the smell. At 5 a.m., I quietly shut the door and stumbled back to my own apartment. That night brought our 10-year crush into the open. It was also the spark that ignited every tragedy to come. He can never know. Whatever is between us can't be allowed to grow. As soon as I closed my front door, I slid to the floor in the entryway. After sitting there stunned for a long time, I broke down sobbing. He was okay. Healthy, alive, and happy. None of it had happened yet. I could still fix everything. This was a night seared into my memory. Owen was celebrating the grand opening of his art studio with me. He'd had too much to drink. I helped him back to his room and was about to get him a glass of water when he hooked a finger through my belt loop. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, his eyes a little hazy, a smile playing on his lips. "Larry, I'm so happy. Grandma's condition is stable, my dream studio is finally taking off, and you're still right here with me. I'm the luckiest guy in the world." He'd said that over and over again all night, and I wasn't tired of hearing it. I just kept murmuring back to him softly. His long fingers slid down and closed around my zipper. His gaze darkened with desire. If I wanted to be even luckier, would that be too greedy? The tension between us thickened, charged with unspoken feelings. My body answered before my mind could. He was drunk, but I was sober. The overwhelming joy of my crush finally being returned crushed my rationality. I let myself get lost with him all night. If I hadn't run away, according to the script, Owen would have woken up at dawn, and he would have defined our relationship. No panic, no disgust, just a shift from confusion to surprise to calm. Before he'd finally ask in a low voice, "Did we sleep together?"
Yeah.
There weren't many marks on him, but I was covered in them. Dark and light like a painting. "Beautiful," he'd murmur, looking down at his masterpiece before leaning in to kiss my chest. "But it's missing something." Let the sober me fill in the blank spaces. A sober Owen was even more relentless than a drunk one. The drunk one was all brute force, but the sober one was a slow, deliberate torture that left you begging for more. In that overwhelming moment, Owen buried his face in my neck and finally let out the decade of feelings he'd held back. 2. "Larry, I think I could die right now with no regrets." Back then, we were naive enough to think that was our happy beginning. The doorbell jolted me awake. My whole body felt like it was falling apart. I'd actually fallen asleep on the floor in my entryway. It was already noon. "Larry, are you home?" It was Owen. I scrambled up, ran to my bedroom to change into pajamas, quickly washed my face, and sprayed on some cologne. Owen was wearing a loose, plain white t-shirt. His eyes flickered when he saw me. He looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't, a little nervous, with a hint of expectation he was trying to hide. "Last night, was I drunk?" "Yeah, you were. You should probably take it easy next time." Owen pressed his lips together, his Adam's apple bobbing. That clearly wasn't what he wanted to talk about. Did I do anything weird? I feigned confusion, scratching my cheek. "Weird? No, you passed out pretty fast. Your clothes smelled like booze, though, so I took them off for you." He stared at me, his expression a mix of doubt and confusion. My answer must have sounded so natural he couldn't find a crack in it. He just murmured quietly, "So it was just a dream?" I hesitated for a few seconds, then decided not to say anything. Owen let out a barely audible sigh and pinched the bridge of his nose. The expectation on his face had been replaced by disappointment. It had been so long since I'd seen him with such a range of expressions. I was lost in the moment. My last memory of Owen was him slumped in a wheelchair, completely lifeless. Before he went into the exam room, he'd stared out the window at the lush greenery, forcing a pale smile. "Larry, was I wrong?" His voice was so quiet, I pretended I didn't hear him. Only after the door closed in front of me did I give my answer. "I'm the one who was wrong. I should just disappear." That day was the first anniversary of our relationship. It was also the only time I didn't wait for him to come out of an exam. I went home and pulled out the blood pressure medication I'd bought a long time ago. I washed down the entire bottle with tap water. The feeling of choking was so real that I couldn't help but touch my throat now. "What happened to your neck?" I snapped back to reality. Owen was staring right at my neck. I'd seen them when I washed my face, 2 red marks. I left the window open last night, and a mosquito got in. It was buzzing around my head in the dark, but every time I turned on the light, it would disappear. So annoying. I'm sure my smile looked perfectly natural and sincere. After all, I'd practiced it in the mirror countless times over the last 6 months. Owen still looked doubtful, but he didn't press it. "Oh, by the way, Grandma's getting out of the hospital today. Want to come with me to pick her up?" Hearing the word grandma made my smile freeze instantly. I looked down at my phone to hide my expression. "Today, huh? I'd love to, but I have plans." "With who? Do I know them?" Owen and I have known each other since middle school. Our social circles almost completely overlap. Even my coworkers know him because I'd always bring him to any work event that allowed a +1. "If it works out, I'll introduce you. For now, it's a secret. What if she sees how handsome you are and falls for you instead?" "Haha." Owen raised an eyebrow and blinked slowly, like he didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "Once you get older, you start thinking about settling down. I bet your grandma wants to see you start a family, right?" I said, smiling. Owen's father was a gambler, and his mother had left them long ago. After his dad, cornered by debt collectors, jumped off a building, his grandmother took him in. They moved in across the hall from me. On the nights my parents worked late and forgot to leave the door unlocked, his grandma would smile and invite me over to do my homework at her place. She was a neat little old lady. Her hair was always perfectly combed, and her home was spotless. She'd make me milk, sew on my loose buttons, and pull crispy egg rolls from a tin box to sneak into my mouth. When she saw my eraser was too small to hold, she'd pull some cash out of a cloth pouch, fold it over and over, and tell Owen to buy me a new one, too. While Owen and I did our homework, she would sit quietly beside us, fanning herself. Sometimes she'd sigh softly and say, "You two, you both have to be good. Study hard, grow up well, stay safe and healthy, and always look out for each other." She just never understood why looking out for each other would lead us to bed. The day Owen came out to her, her cloudy, yellowed eyes turned to me. Her hair was a mess, and her body was trembling. She said only one thing, "Larry, I always thought of you as my own grandson." Those words became my nightmare. On countless sleepless nights, they echoed in my mind, tearing me apart. In this new life, Grandma has to live a long, full life, and Owen has to be safe and healthy. The tragedy will not happen again, no matter what. As for me, even though I'm back before it all happened, the gut-wrenching memories still haunt me. I'm trapped in a cage of painful memories. When I lit a cigarette on the balcony, my dad came over, looking surprised. "Since when did you pick this up? Is work that stressful?" The ember had barely glowed for a second before he plucked it from my lips and stubbed it out. "Your mom and I don't have high expectations for you. Just getting by is enough." Then he furtively wrapped the cigarette in a piece of paper and buried it at the very bottom of the trash can. "Don't let your mom see. She'll just worry." I suddenly realized he wasn't young anymore. He had so much gray hair. In my past life, as I was dying, I thought of my parents for a fleeting moment. The note I left them was filled with "I'm sorry. I knew what I did was cowardly and selfish, but I just couldn't hold on any longer. Every breath, every blink was pure agony. My dad patted my shoulder, pulling me out of my thoughts. I couldn't help but hug him back, hiding the wetness in my eyes. Dad, I want to stay here tonight. Huh? Didn't you refuse to move in before? Can't I change my mind? Of course you can. We've been telling you to move in for ages. The apartment I was living in was old. They'd been talking about tearing it down for over a decade, but nothing ever happened. The old complex had no property management or security. The drab walls were peeling, covered in patches of gray-green mildew. It looked completely out of place next to the sleek high-rises around it. Most of the neighbors had moved out. My parents moved into their new place 2 years ago. I stayed because Owen was still there. I wanted to see him every day. But now I could finally consider moving out. Just then, Owen's call came through. He said his grandma insisted on seeing me and asked if I could join them for dinner. I tightened my grip on the phone. Nah, I'm not coming back tonight. The other end of the line went silent. It was like he had stopped breathing. After a long moment, he finally spoke, his voice strained. Did you get held up at work? Or, Larry, what are you waiting for? Hurry up. Owen's voice cut off. I looked up and saw Chloe waving at me from the dinner table. She's my cousin, just 2 months younger than me. She's always been casual, never once calling me bro or anything. Chloe had been studying abroad for years, so Owen didn't know her. She was staying here now because I remembered from my past life that she'd been scammed out of her money and heart by a scumbag roommate, which sent her into a deep depression. Back then, I found life so exhausting myself that I didn't have the energy to help her. This time around, I was going to help her avoid it if I could. Coming. After replying to her, I rushed my goodbyes into the phone. I waited a couple of seconds. He didn't say anything, so I hung up. I knew Owen had gotten the wrong idea. I didn't plan on explaining. Letting him misunderstand was a good strategy. Besides, it wasn't like I could find someone to play along with me on such short notice. That night, Owen sent me a few tentative messages, carefully probing. I read every single one but didn't reply. The chat finally went quiet around midnight, as if he'd given up. When I went home the next morning, I had just put the key in the lock when I heard the door to Owen's apartment open behind me. Owen didn't look well. There were faint blue shadows under his eyes and on his chin. I greeted him first. Sorry, I just saw my phone this morning. Hope it wasn't anything important. His gaze drifted from my face to my slightly rumpled collar. I had worn the same clothes on purpose. Owen's lips parted slightly, but he just forced a smile. In that much of a hurry? When you meet someone you like, I said, turning the key and opening the door, you have to make your move. As soon as the words left my mouth, a familiar voice came from behind Owen. Is that Larry? Oh, good, you're back. Have you had breakfast? Come eat with us. A violent tremor ran through me, and I started to shake uncontrollably. I struggled to keep my voice steady. I'm exhausted. I think I'm going to get some sleep. Please say hi to Grandma for me. With that, I slipped inside and quickly shut the door. Another second, and I might have lost it completely. After Owen and I got together, he tried to tell his grandma the truth several times, but I always stopped him. He'd said, Grandma watched us grow up. If it's you, I don't think she'll be that against it. But I knew that her greatest dream was to see Owen have a happy, complete family with children of his own. I mean, this is great, Owen would say, nuzzling his head against my shoulder, but I'd really love to have my family's blessing. His affection melted my resolve, and I started to think it was the most perfect idea in the world. Turns out that when you get too greedy, fate has a way of punishing you. Grandma wasn't against it, not really. She didn't seem upset at all. Beneath her drooping eyelids, her gaze was like a dark, still pool. Took me a long time to understand what it held. Disappointment in me, and despair for Owen. I was the thief who had stolen her beautiful dream. She knew that what she had spent most of her life waiting for would never happen now. Nothing could separate Owen and me except death. Grandma didn't leave a single word. Only an empty bottle of blood pressure pills. I didn't end up getting any sleep after all. Owen rang my doorbell relentlessly. I checked my expression in the mirror countless times before finally opening the door. Is there something else? I asked, my voice thick with feigned sleepiness. He took a step inside, shutting the door behind him without a second thought, and stood in front of me. Larry, did something happen to you? I froze for a second. My reaction must have been too obvious. Owen hadn't spent more than a decade by my side for nothing. He could read my emotions like a book. A simple explanation wouldn't be enough to quell his suspicions. So I forced a suggestive smile. We're both adults. I don't need to spell it out for you, do I? Now it was Owen's turn to freeze. A visible blush crept up his face, and he quickly looked away. That's not what I meant. His voice trailed off. I just thought you were acting strange. Like something's on your mind. You look really tired. Yeah, it was pretty exhausting. Owen pressed his lips together and said nothing. I walked over to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and started chugging it. The turmoil inside me cooled rapidly. I undid 2 buttons on my shirt and casually wiped away the water that had dripped down my neck. I made sure he could see. The marks on my chest would paint a vivid, X-rated picture in his mind. And in that picture, the main characters would be me and some other woman. Pretending not to notice his burning gaze, I sat down on the sofa. Time to add more fuel to the fire. Owen, your studio is open now. When are you going to find a wife? You're not getting any younger. Don't let your grandma down. I must have sounded so obnoxious right then, like one of those relatives who shows up at the holidays to criticize everyone's life choices. Sure enough, his expression soured. His tone became clipped. You don't need to worry about that. How could I not worry? The price of being reckless was too heavy for either of us to bear. But even after all that, Owen still hadn't left. I was starting to lose my composure, just scrolling aimlessly on my phone. Larry, you're really important to me. My heart skipped a beat. I looked up at him, shocked. He stuck his hands in his pockets and looked at me earnestly. Let me meet her sometime, the person you like. I couldn't tell Chloe the truth, so I just said I needed her to pretend to be my girlfriend for a while due to some special circumstances. When she heard she'd be paid by the hour, she agreed in a heartbeat. But can't you just turn him down? Why do you have to put on a show? I stirred my drink with a straw, the ice cubes clinking against the glass. He probably won't confess, but I need him to give up on the idea as soon as possible. Are you sure he's even into you? You're not just imagining things. Are you? Ha ha ha. Of course, I was sure. Owen had been in love with me for 10 years, ever since he started hiding the love letters other people wrote to me. He loved me even after his grandma killed herself because of us, even after he lost his career over it. He saw my guilt, and even though he was in agony himself, he would force a smile and comfort me. Larry, I'm the sinner, not you. You're my love. Feeling myself slipping back into those memories, I quickly took a big gulp of my drink. I wanted to go over the script with Chloe again to distract myself, but she was busy chatting with a guy at the next table. The guy looked a little familiar. I half listened to their conversation until they pulled out their phones to exchange contact info. When I heard the man's name, my eyes shot open. My body moved before my brain could process it. I shot to my feet, knocking the small table so hard it wobbled. What do you think you're doing? Startled by my sharp tone, the man sheepishly pulled his hand back. What's your problem? Chloe tugged at my sleeve, whispering angrily. Are you seriously trying to ruin my love life? This guy is totally my type. I slapped her hand away, my voice almost a roar. Don't you get it? You're the one on the menu. This was the man, the roommate who had scammed Chloe out of her money and heart in the other life. Chloe was clearly stunned, her mouth hanging open. I was usually very easygoing, she had never seen me this angry. Only I knew the overwhelming panic hidden beneath my rage. How could this be happening? I had already intervened to keep them apart. How did they meet again? Could it be that you can't change fate? The sky was dark and heavy, the low pressure making it hard to breathe. A storm was brewing. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up. A notification popped up. Larry, Grandma fell. I was driving so erratically that after a few screams, Chloe finally insisted on taking the wheel. I huddled in the passenger seat, my body trembling. I was so afraid of seeing that broken look in Owen's eyes again. Seeing it once was enough to shatter my heart. I couldn't bear to see it a second time. Owen was leaning against the hospital room door. He stood up straight when he saw me. How is she? She should be okay. His gaze fell on Chloe, his brow furrowing almost imperceptibly. He paused, then slowed his words. The doctor wants to keep her for observation for a few nights. I had imagined all sorts of terrible scenarios on the way here, and I was still shaken. Through the glass window on the door, I could see his grandma lying in the hospital bed, looking as frail as a piece of paper. Normally, I would go in to see her, but I couldn't make my feet move. I wasn't ready. I still couldn't face her. Chloe, ever the quick thinker, grabbed my arm and gave it a shake. Larry, I'm going to be late. Owen looked at me, his expression unreadable. Sorry, did I interrupt something? I was just in a panic and didn't know who else to call. Everything's fine here now. If you have something to do, you should go. I breathed a sigh of relief. Chloe didn't let go of me until we were in the parking garage. You didn't say it was a guy. That's a different rate. And you owe me for driving back here, plus emotional damages for your reckless driving. The number I transferred to her account shut her up pretty quickly. I couldn't understand how someone who loved money so much could be scammed out of her entire life savings by a man. I'd interfered twice in this life. There shouldn't be a third time. Chloe, can you try to remember how you feel right now? What? A good man will give you money. He won't ask you for it. Chloe stared at me for a second, then made a face. EW, are you trying to compliment yourself? That type you were into this afternoon? Bad for you and overpriced. Avoid him next time. Oh, have you tried him before? It was hopeless. After dropping Chloe off at my parents' house, I didn't stay. Even though pulling away from Owen's life was the right decision, I couldn't be sure if the events I knew were coming would still happen. This time his grandma just fell, but what about next time? I soon realized that leaving was the wrong choice. At least for tonight. A flash of lightning lit up the world, and in the next second, my vision went black. Every appliance in my apartment shut off at once. The power was out. The high rises in the distance were still lit up, but my little corner of the world was swallowed by darkness. The equipment in this complex was ancient. No one would be coming to fix it anytime soon. I froze, not daring to move, waiting for my eyes to adjust until I could make out the vague shapes of things. My phone was on the bed in my room, but I was too scared to go get it. I'm terrified of the dark. I was accidentally left in a small storage closet as a kid, and the trauma has stayed with me ever since. In middle school, someone found out about my weakness and locked me in the gym equipment room. They were probably just joking, wanting to see me freak out, but I was genuinely terrified. In the end, it was Owen who found me. He tracked down the two guys and beat the crap out of them. For my birthday that year, he gave me a small night light. Even on the nights when he was lost in his own grief, he always remembered to turn it on for me. You don't have to hide your emotions in the dark. I missed Owen's clean, warm embrace, the comforting scent of acrylic paint that sometimes clung to him. I curled up in a corner of the sofa, trying desperately to remember the feeling of his arms around me, and the soft, gentle tone of his voice when he would soothe me. Larry. The wind howled outside. The voice was lost in the storm. I sat up straight, my heart pounding. Owen? There was no answer from the pitch-black doorway. Was I imagining things? Did I miss him so much that I was starting to hallucinate? Despite the storm raging outside, the silence in the apartment was terrifying. Even my own breathing seemed to echo. The furniture around me seemed to warp and twist in the darkness, pressing in on me, making it hard to breathe, until a beam of light hit me. The damp air from the hallway, carrying the faint scent of shower gel, washed over me. I looked up and saw a familiar silhouette. In that one glance, my heart settled. Good thing you left a spare key at my place. Owen pressed his phone into my hand. Is your phone dead? It's in the bedroom. I'll get it. As he turned to go, I instinctively stood up to follow him, but I was too hasty and slammed my knee into the coffee table. I let out a muffled groan of pain. Owen immediately turned back and steadied me. Are you okay? Let me see. Without waiting for an answer, he rolled up my pajama leg, holding my wrist to shine the flashlight on my knee. Up close, I realized he was only wearing a bathrobe, his hair still dripping with water. What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be at the hospital? He checked to make sure the skin wasn't broken, then gently massaged the area with his palm. I was about to head over for the night after my shower, but then the power went out. Hearing that, I quickly pulled my leg back, wanting him to get going. But before I could say anything, I remembered something critically important. The day of Owen's car accident was also a stormy, rainy day. He was so grief-stricken and distracted that when he tried to brake, the wet road caused him to skid. The crash caused severe trauma to his nervous system, leaving him unable to stand on his own or hold a paintbrush. Don't worry, I'll wait until you're asleep before I go. He fumbled for my ankle and pulled me back, his palm settling on my knee again. Even though he hadn't suffered the blow of losing his only relative this time, and an accident wasn't a certainty, I couldn't gamble with his fate. Don't go tonight. Hire a caretaker for the hospital and get one for home, too. You can't be there 24/7. I'll cover half the cost. The flashlight on his phone didn't give off much light, so I couldn't see his expression. His hand suddenly stopped moving. After a few seconds of silence, he started massaging my knee again. The pressure was much harder this time. Larry, that's my grandmother. On what grounds are you paying for half? I paused, then lowered my head. She always thought of me as her own grandson. So, does that make me your half-brother? I was slowly realizing that something was off with Owen's mood. My fear of the dark had overshadowed the subtle signs. But thinking back, he had been acting strange at the hospital, too. I mumbled an answer, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. Then Owen leaned in closer, his face entering the small circle of light, forcing me to meet his intense gaze. Why would you lie to your brother about dating someone? My mind went blank for a second, then raced with 1,000 possibilities. Did Chloe betray me? Had Owen met Chloe before? Or was our acting just that bad? She's your cousin, isn't she? You showed me her social feed a few years ago. Larry, I remember every single thing you've ever told me. So, his warm, dry hand touched my chest, the calluses on his fingers gently grazing my skin. Who really left these? The world was spinning. I felt dizzy. I instinctively shook my head, insisting that he had the wrong person. Owen stared at me for a long time, then suddenly reached out and took his phone back. With a flick of his long finger, he turned off the flashlight. My world plunged back into darkness. I frantically tried to grab the phone back, but he caught my wrist in a tight grip. He easily pinned both of my hands and pressed down on me. With my sight gone, my other senses became heightened. I could feel his every reaction against my body. Owen. My voice trembled uncontrollably. I tried to sound weak, hoping he would back off. What are you doing? It's dark. You know I'm scared of the dark. Shoo. I'm just checking something. It'll be quick. His warm breath ghosted over my skin, getting closer, getting hotter. I felt a soft touch on my chest, a light, feather-like trace that moved upward, paused for 2 seconds, and then, without hesitation, landed on my lips. Fireworks exploded in my brain. I was stunned for a moment, then began to struggle violently, but his grip was like iron. He even managed to free one hand to hold down my thrashing legs. Careful with your knee. Let me go. I can't. He let out a soft laugh, as if a great weight had finally been lifted. He relaxed and collapsed on top of me. Larry, that night I forced you, didn't I? That's why you're avoiding me. I knew it. He hadn't completely blacked out. He vaguely remembered what happened between us but wasn't sure. A deep sense of regret and powerlessness washed over me. Even with a second chance, I had still ended up on the same old path. No, this couldn't happen. Yeah, you were too strong. I couldn't fight you off. But nothing really happened. It was just an accident. Can we just pretend it never happened? I tried to salvage the situation with a calm, natural tone, but Owen's refusal was just as firm. I can't pretend it never happened. I'm in love with you. I have been for over 10 years. That day in sophomore year when you fell asleep doing homework at my place, I carried you to bed. It was 12 steps from the desk to the bedroom, and it took me half an hour because I couldn't bear to put you down. At the graduation dinner, you were drunk and clinging to me. I couldn't resist, so I secretly kissed your hair and your earlobe. That time in college, I washed your sheets for you. It wasn't because you spilled a drink. It was because you were sleeping next to me and I lost control. The truth is, all these years, every time I've touched myself, I've been thinking of you. I was going to keep it a secret forever, but now you know. I was grateful he had turned off the flashlight. Otherwise, my expression would have completely betrayed me. That's disgusting, I replied to his confession, my voice dripping with revulsion. Owen's body tensed for a second. Then he propped himself up and laughed softly. If it's so disgusting, why would you pretend it never happened just to stay friends with me? Even though I couldn't see a thing, I could feel his scorching gaze locked on me. I just didn't want to lose our friendship. That doesn't mean I'm not disgusted. Okay, then let me ask you another question. His hand gently cupped my cheek, his touch impossibly tender. Larry, why are you crying right now? I couldn't answer that question, because the hospital called. Grandma, who had been stable, had suddenly slipped into a coma. I looked out at the pouring rain, closed my eyes, and finally stumbled out into the darkness after him. I couldn't trust any rainy night. The drive was tense but uneventful. By the time we got to the hospital, I was weak in the knees. They ran tests on Grandma, but everything came back normal. Her vital signs were stable, but she just wouldn't wake up. The nurse said that before we arrived, she had been murmuring someone's name. It sounded like Larry. I froze on the spot. Me? Owen was at the end of the hall talking to a doctor, his expression grave. I slowly turned the doorknob and entered the room. I shuffled toward the bed and stopped beside it. Her hand, resting on top of the covers, was old and gray. It had once gently stroked my hair, patted my shoulder, and finally, hung limply beneath a white sheet. Right now, at least it was still warm. Grandma, I whispered, taking her hand and slowly kneeling by the bed. I'm sorry. I won't dare to love Owen anymore. I'll slowly fade out of your lives and stop bothering you. I just want you to be safe and happy. The rhythmic beeping of the machines was a stark contrast to the silence in the room. Realizing Owen would be back any minute, I sniffled and stood up. Just as I was tucking her in, Owen pushed the door open. He stopped when he saw me. I quickly wiped the tears from my face, looked down, and hurried toward the door. You stay with Grandma. I'm going to head home. I stopped in my tracks. Owen was holding my right hand. I tried to pull away, but he held on tight. Let me lean on you for a second. He leaned against me, resting his head on my shoulder. I heard a soft, weary sigh. Larry, I'm a little scared. I should have pushed him away, but faced with his vulnerability and exhaustion, I couldn't find the strength. All I could do was offer a useless reassurance. Don't be scared. Everything's going to be okay. I have this feeling that I'm going to lose Grandma. And you. Owen took a step back and straightened up, giving me a pale smile. If that happens, what's the point of living? I shuddered, barely able to look at him. Since being reborn, I had never once considered what would have happened if the original timeline still existed. What Owen's reaction would have been when he came out of the exam room and didn't see me, when he came home and found my body. It wasn't that I didn't want to think about it. I didn't dare. I wanted to escape, to let us both go. I had been a coward, abandoning him without a thought for his feelings. How utterly devastated he must have been. The tears I had been holding back threatened to spill over again. I quickly turned away. Owen, I shouldn't be a necessity in your life. You need to look at the world around you. There are so many other people and things worth cherishing. In my peripheral vision, I saw Owen press his lips together. His fingers slipped between mine, our hands now intertwined. Larry, you are my world. That's wrong. I finally wrenched my hand away. Realizing my voice had risen, I quickly fell silent. It took a long time for the frantic beating in my chest to calm down. Owen, if I told you that choosing me meant you would lose your grandma and your passion for painting forever, what would you think? He frowned. Why would you say that? Can't I have it all? I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Of course not. Because fate has never been kind to you and me. Grandma woke up a week later. The hospital called me. I had been staying at my new place for most of the week and hadn't seen Owen. We can't get a hold of the family. The patient keeps repeating your name and phone number. If it's convenient, could you please come by? Can't get a hold of him? How is that possible? After hanging up, I hesitated for a moment before dialing Owen's number. The automated voice on the other end repeated, "The number you have dialed has been turned off." A nameless anxiety gripped my heart. I took several deep breaths and sent him a text message. Then I rushed to the hospital. Grandma had her back to me, gazing out the window. Her back was stooped and thin. I tried to calm my racing heart and called out softly, "Grandma." She turned her head, her cloudy eyes brightening. She smiled and beckoned me over, asking me kindly how I'd been. Her voice trailed off, and silence fell between us. The sun was shining brightly outside the room, but inside, the air was stagnant. I felt awkward and pulled out my phone. "Grandma, let me try to contact Owen again." "Don't worry." Grandma reached out and pressed my hand down. Her bony hand was trembling slightly. "Larry, you love my Owen, too. Why are you pushing him away?" If it weren't for the realness of her touch, I would have thought this was a dream, a hallucination. The dust motes floating in the light were the ashes of my crumbling inner world. The collapse was silent. Why would she ask that? Had she already figured out what was between Owen and me? Was she testing me? I stumbled backward, my breathing becoming so ragged that my words came out in a jumble. No, that's not it, Grandma. We're just really good friends." Grandma looked at me with a strange, complicated expression I had never seen before. After a long moment, she smiled and shook her head. "Larry, Grandma has seen everything." She began to describe the scenes that had been appearing in her mind over the past few days, things she had witnessed. At first, I thought they were dreams, but then I realized they were real. "Larry, honey, can you please reconsider? Is there some reason you can't be with him?" I staggered out of the room. My skin tingled as if I'd been electrocuted, a wave of shivers running up my spine. My thoughts were a tangled mess, because the future she was describing was not the one I had lived through. It was a completely unfamiliar, unbelievable, and unknown series of events. Owen's phone was still off. I went to his apartment and his studio but couldn't find him. Standing aimlessly at a street corner, I suddenly remembered the workshop Owen used before his studio opened. It was a humble basement, the place where his dream began. Sure enough, he was there. He was completely focused, sketching on a piece of paper. His hand was steady. After the accident, his hand would tremble uncontrollably, making it impossible for him to hold a pen. His lines became crooked and shaky. He could no longer call himself an artist. He hated his body's betrayal. In the dead of night, he would take a palette knife and slice his arm, again and again. He was afraid of upsetting me, so he would wrap it in tape and hide it under long sleeves. By the time I found out, the wounds were severely infected, the flesh rotten. He told me it didn't hurt at all. I believed him because by then we were both numb to the pain. Owen's hand paused. He looked up and saw me, a flicker of panic in his eyes. He hastily ripped the paper from the easel and hid it behind his back. He moved so quickly that he bumped into a nearby cabinet. A stack of drawings slid off, scattering across the floor. Owen couldn't grab them in time. I glanced down and froze. Every single sheet of paper was covered with drawings of me, all different expressions, different poses. A few of them were dated more recently. They were of me, lying in bed. He must have drawn them from his fragmented memories of that night. "Are you disgusted?" Owen stood there, clutching the paper at a complete loss. I thought it was beautiful. I shook my head, unable to focus on anything else right now. Grandma's awake, and she's acting strange. The drive to the hospital was silent. An indie song played on the car radio as we stopped smoothly at a crosswalk. Owen tapped out the rhythm on the steering wheel with his index finger. "After you left that day, I did a lot of thinking." He was looking straight ahead, not at me, his profile serious. "I can't imagine a life without my family or my career. So he had made his choice. I should have been relieved, but instead, I just felt empty. The crosswalk timer started flashing, and Owen shifted gears. But I can't imagine a life without you even more. The universe is multi-dimensional. Maybe in thousands of other worlds, Owen and Larry don't get to be together. But there has to be at least one world where we're happily in love. So why can't it be this world? Before stepping on the gas, Owen turned his head, his gaze as gentle as water but holding an unshakable resolve. Larry, I'm not giving up on loving you. The wind rushed in through the open window as the car moved. I stared at Owen, stunned. The song hit its crescendo, the beat pounding against my chest, my heart racing along with it. Could you say that again? A smile touched Owen's lips. I will always love you. The part before that. The Owen in every world will always love Larry. I think I finally understood what was happening to Grandma. The universe is multi-dimensional. When I was reborn on the night I slept with Owen, I was so influenced by the future tragedy that I decided to crush our budding feelings before they could even start. That was a decision that would change the original course of events. And at that exact point in time, another dimension split off from our world. In the current world, I was still entangled with Owen, indecisive. But in the new world that had split off, I left decisively, without any hesitation. Somehow, Grandma had connected with that new world. She said that right after she was discharged from the hospital. A thought suddenly popped into her head. Larry had left without a word. But then the next day, I was at my door, talking to Owen. She thought she was just getting old, her mind playing tricks on her. But then, strange images kept flashing in her mind. Owen looking dejected. Owen in pain. Owen locking himself in his room and painting nonstop. The little old lady thought it was a premonition. She snuck into Owen's study and found a huge stack of my portraits. She was so shocked that she fell. That night of the power outage, when Owen confessed to me, I wavered. I still loved Owen. I still wanted to love Owen. This affected the split world, causing a fluctuation in the connection, and Grandma fell into a coma. As a result, she clearly witnessed the events of the other world unfold. In that world, after I left, Owen searched for me like a madman. When he couldn't find me, he was tormented by pain. He had already realized that we had crossed a line that night and agonized over whether it was his fault, whether he had scared me away. Grandma couldn't bear to see him so down and scolded him to get a grip. He's a man. No matter how great he is, he's still a man. Can't you just snap out of it? Owen continued to paint my likeness without stopping, his voice cold. I am snapped out of it, Grandma. I love him. It has nothing to do with his gender. If you were really snapped out of it, you wouldn't be doing something so foolish. Grandma was furious with him, but she couldn't bear to see her precious grandson wasting away. She brought over many people to try to talk sense into him, but no one could sway him in the slightest. Later, she lied to Owen, telling him that she had found me. Owen rushed into the room, but he couldn't find me among the young, unfamiliar faces. They were all fans who admired Owen. Grandma believed that because I was the only friend Owen had ever had growing up, he had the illusion that he had no other choice. Those bright, lovely fangirls were better than me in every way. Owen flew into a rage and kicked them all out. Grandma, at her wits' end, threatened to kill herself to make him give me up. But Owen was faster. He sat on the windowsill and held a palette knife to his throat. Grandma, Larry doesn't want me anymore. If you leave me too, I won't go on living. The window frame in the old building was rickety. He was perched precariously. And at that moment, in my world, I was kneeling in the hospital, confessing my sins to her, vowing to leave their lives. She could hear me, but her body couldn't move. When she finally woke up, the first thing she did was call me to her bedside. She had given in, but she would never know what I was so afraid of. The road, bathed in the last light of the sun, seemed to stretch on forever. Living things have their own defense mechanisms. The brain, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, will gradually forget traumatic memories. That's why we repeat our mistakes over and over again. These past few days, I found that I can hardly remember the gut-wrenching pain of my past life. Instead, I find myself thinking more and more about the short, sweet time I had with Owen. It was too short. Felt like it was over before it even began. In thousands of worlds, Owen and Larry could never be together. They struggled, they begged, they threw caution to the wind. Perhaps this is the only world where they can be together. I want to be brave one more time. Owen, the cost for Grandma's caretaker, I'll cover half. As family. The song on the radio was finally reaching its end. In the afterglow of this solar system, I will take you back home with me, not afraid of starting it all over. For you I have become reckless, till death do us part.